Welcome to Game Changers Live from Miami, Florida. My name is Sergio Tigera. I'm your host. And each and every week, we bring you someone who has been a game changer in their field and who's touched the lives of thousands to get their perspective on their journey, their mindset, their struggles and successes so that we can inspire you on your journey. So let's get started right now. And welcome to Game Changers Live from our home studio here in FIU's College of Communications, Architecture, and the Arts. This is our brand new studio here, and we'd love to have you here each and every episode. Again, my name is Sergio Tigera, and my guest today is Deena Piquion. She's the Chief Growth and Marketing Officer for a company you may know called Xerox. So we're coming to you live from the College of Communications, Architecture, and the Arts here at FIU. So happy to have you here. All right, Deena, welcome, my friend.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So Deena is absolutely a trailblazer in her field. You were talking about high-powered women, high-powered executives that have earned their role in their place in a traditionally driven kind of role through men historically, right? So before we get into that, I want to talk to you about you. Kind of give me your story, your background, kind of what drove you as you were growing up. What are some of the goals you had as a child that then has perhaps led to where you are today?
Sure. So it all starts with my parents. They immigrated to the U.S. from Haiti. So I'm first generation, born in New York. They really valued education and pushed me, to always pay attention and do my best and learn. And that was how I was going to succeed here. So they moved to New York. I was born in Queens. Then we moved out to Long Island, and my parents chased the best school districts. They did their research. And they were like, okay, which are the best school districts, public school districts that we could get our kids in for free, right? As part of the tax system.
Sure.
And I ended up in Half Hollow Hills. It's a great, in Dix Hills, it's a great school system. And I always thought I was going to be a lawyer because with Haitian parents, it's like either lawyer or doctor, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You had to choose one. I definitely chose law. But once I got into college, and, I majored in political science, minored in women's studies, very typical path for somebody who would go on to law school.
Yeah.
I took a gap year in between and I worked with lawyers. And I was like,
then you quickly realized that this wasn't for you, right?
This is for me. So I changed paths and ended up going to grad school instead of law school. And I went for international business at Georgetown in DC. And funny enough, I thought I was going to go into like diplomacy. I thought I'd be in the foreign service or I'd be working in NGO. That was kind of what I thought would come out of my grad school, education. And then one day, an alumni came to speak to us, somebody who had graduated from Georgetown, and he was the CEO of Tech Data, which is a huge global tech distributor based in Florida. And we started talking after his panel, and he invited me to come check out a management training program that he had. He was really passionate about education and about giving people experiences. And so I came down, I interviewed in Tampa, which is where Clearwater, actually, where Tech Data was headquartered. And I was like, the average age around here is like very high. Do you have offices anywhere else? And he's like, yeah, we have our Latin American office in Miami. And I'm like, I think that would be a better fit.
Yeah, a little closer to home too, as well.
So I moved to Miami and I did this 1-year rotation with an executive sponsor and got a really good understanding of the business. I, got finance, ops, HR, sales, marketing, business development. And it was a great introduction to tech. It was a great introduction to business. And I ended up being at Tech Data for 19 years, growing in my career. Wow. So I thought I'd be in Miami for a year or two, taking a break from the Northeast. And here I am 24 years later, still here.
My gosh. So what were the key things that you said that you think drove your success? Was it persistence? Was it confidence? Was it kind of clarity around what you wanted? I mean, there was a lot of times where you thought you were going to be something and then it pivoted and you didn't go that path. So what were the things that...
One of the things I tell young people today is like, it's great to have a plan. It's great to design your life and be accountable for what you want out of life, but you've always got to stay open and flexible. You
Hmm.
never know the power of a conversation, an introduction, you know,
Oh, that's for sure.
learning from
That's for sure.
somebody, and you find a new passion and it changes your course, right? and
Hmm.
and so I think that was it. I was open to kind of, I wasn't so fixated on
Yeah.
what I thought I was going to do, because I could have ended up going to law school, being a lawyer, and not being happy, right?
Right, right. But you
And
wanted something that drove you and were you very intentional about telling people, "Hey, here's what I want," or "Here's what I'm looking for," because I think it's important to do that? Or did they just kind of see
I think I've
some innate
learned over the years, and I'm much better at it now. I think as a young, early in career person, I was an introvert. I had to teach myself to be an extrovert. I had to teach myself to be assertive in the boardroom. These were things I had to learn myself,
right.
right? And especially in Latin America, in tech, I was often the only woman in the room, so I had to teach myself, how to disagree respectfully,
Right.
right? How to make voice my opinions, be part of the conversation, take up space on the
And
table.
did you ever feel that imposter syndrome, right? Where you're like, "Oh boy, wait till they kind of figure out
For
that."
sure. I think it's so funny because now it's become so common to talk about the imposter
Hmm.
syndrome, but there was a time when we didn't know. We just thought
No.
we had this like little voice in our head telling us like, you can't do that, or you don't know that, or you're
Yeah, you
not
don't
good enough.
belong here.
You're,
You're not
yeah,
at this
at
table with
this
all these
table.
men. And
And it's been good. I read a lot. That helped me a lot, right? Like reading throughout my career. I read a lot of management books, leadership books, business books.
what are you reading now?
Right now, I'm about to start Gary Vee's new book. Actually, it just
Oh, which
came
one?
out. It's all about like building a brand in this kind of digital economy, social
Oh, that's
media, and
perfect. Right up your
everything.
alley then.
Right up my alley. Yeah.
So then going back to, you were in the tech space for a while, then you went to Xerox after that. So how did that happen?
So I grew at Tech Data, which was an amazing, amazing journey, and I made friends there. I really grew professionally and personally. I got married, had my kids there. Like it was an amazing journey. But at 19 years at Tech Data, I was starting to get a little
Kind of like you
itchy.
have the
Yeah, like
blindfolds
the
on, like the
yes,
blinders on, right? That's all you
right.
know.
That's
And
all I know, and it's all the only place I've been. And I felt I needed to make a change before 20 years. Otherwise, maybe I would never
yeah,
make a
right,
change.
right, right.
And it's funny how when you start to accept something, it starts to come to you from the universe, right?
Hmm.
So like I kind of started to get my mind around leaving, and then recruiters started calling me.
Isn't that true? I mean, it's incredible how we can attract it, or perhaps the other way to think about it is that, and I always tell this to my clients, we have a thing called the RAS, which is the reticular activating system, and it lets in things of importance and of threat. And so when you declare something important, you kind of make a decision. You're like, hey, I need to start seeing myself somewhere else. You start picking up clues, meeting recruiters that perhaps you wouldn't have met because it wasn't important to you. It didn't connect.
Right.
And so whether it's the universe or that, I completely agree with you. Once you kind of set your mind to something, all of a sudden the opportunities start to present themselves. Right.
Absolutely. So I was VP and general manager at the time at Tech Data, and I started to get calls, and one of them was from a recruiter recruiting for Xerox. And
Wow.
she was interesting, and she explained the challenge without telling me the company, because she was
Of
like, you have to
course.
sign an NDA, and
Yeah.
to get to the next steps. But once I did, and I actually started interviewing with the new leadership team at Xerox and hearing about the challenges that they were trying to solve for, I was like, this is a great opportunity to really
Hmm.
make a difference, roll up my sleeves, learn something new, and make an impact. And so I joined mostly because of the people and the challenge at the time.
Yeah. I always tell clients as well that we leave our bosses, not our companies, right? And when you can find inspirational, authentic, vision driven people that want to make a big change and they want you on board, I mean, that's exciting. And that what a great challenge that is, right? Because Xerox has traditionally been a copy company, right? A hardware company, and things have changed rapidly over the last 20 years, and they've had to pivot, right? And kind of bring in some fresh blood, some fresh ideas, because I'm sure Xerox has had some legacy employees that have been there a long time, right?
Absolutely. It's been, it's this iconic brand. It's like a 115-year plus company. And the world changed, especially during COVID, right? I
Right.
joined Xerox December of 2019, right before COVID. And we literally had to pivot like overnight because $2 billion of our revenue went out the door because people weren't going to the office anymore.
Wow.
So we had to accelerate the reinvention. COVID and the
Absolutely.
hybrid workplace trends really changed the game. But it's so interesting to have the responsibility to kind of take an iconic brand and try to make it relevant for the modern workplace,
Yeah.
and that's what we're doing. We're known for copy and print will always be a big part of our business.
Right.
People are still printing. I mean, there are billions of pages printed all
Sure.
the time. There's specific industries where it's really important, but we know hybrid and sustainability goals are here to stay, right? And so we're trying to grow in IT services and digital services. We're already trusted by so many businesses. We're behind their firewalls, we're in their offices.
Sure.
Our technicians are their trusted people coming in and out
Mhm.
of their offices. And so it is really about expanding the offerings that we sell into our existing clients that already trust us
Right.
and reaching new demographics. Everybody who's 45 and over knows Xerox well, right?
Right.
But there's a whole generation, that digital
That
native,
have never
that
used
don't,
copiers, are like, what is
yeah,
this
they're
thing?
like, what? And so we've got to introduce ourselves, and we've got to introduce ourselves in a way that's relevant to them, right?
My gosh. And so, I mean, that, like you said, it's a responsibility, a tremendous responsibility for a very, very well known company. I mean, it's known all around the world, to then now change this. Did you ever come into the office at the beginning and say, okay, day one, how am I going to do this? What's the strategy? Obviously, you can't come up with it all yourself. A kind of shared sense of authorship from a massive team, right?
Yes.
That has to. How does that play out?
It's really great because yes, sometimes it can seem daunting, right? But you've got
Hmm.
to break things down. You've got to, have your strategy, and then understand what you can do in the near term, midterm, long term against that strategy, right? So you've got to have tactical goals, you've got to have like long-term strategic goals. But my team is amazing. I have an amazing senior leadership team, really diverse opinions, personalities, experience sets, some who have always been at Xerox, some who are very new to Xerox. So it's a good mix
Yeah.
of thought perspectives. Um, and, the executive committee is such a great team to work with. I was just in Norwalk with them this week, met the new board. We brought in new board members.
Yeah, I saw the Nasdaq billboard that
Yes.
you guys did there, introducing all your new board members.
So it's a team effort. Like we really do play
Yeah.
as a team. We win as a team. We fail as a team. We learn as a team. We adjust, right?
Yeah.
Not every single thing is going to work, and you've got to adjust and
Yeah.
be
You got
able
to take
to.
your shots on goal.
Yep,
You never know if it's going to work.
exactly.
And so, I want to dig in a little bit to the strategy, because I think that's really. I do strategic planning with organizations. So setting the vision of, okay, where are we going to be 3 to 5 years from now, or 10, 20 years from now? Where's the industry moving? How did you go through that process of identifying, okay, this is what we want to look like 3 years, 5, 10, 15 years from now, because this is where the industry is heading, and we want to be the leader in this space. Does that even exist right now? Tell me about that process that you
Yeah,
guys went through.
absolutely. So first, it's about looking at market intelligence and market data. You've got to be like market back data driven,
Right.
right? You've got to know
If
where
not,
the
you're just
industry.
kind of pulling it out of the air. It's an
Right.
idea.
So your strategy has to be grounded in facts, in reality, in market data, and intelligence. And so we did a lot of kind of soul searching there,
Mhm.
and really looking at what are the areas we can play in. And that's how we've developed, this focus on our digital services and IT services. And we have like a strategic long range plan with, milestones, mix shift, like an orchestrated mix shift, like where we're saying today, 90% of our business is print. And these are things we've said to investors publicly. So
Mhm.
90% of our business is print. We want to be 75% print 3 years from now.
Right.
Not because print declined, right? We want
But
to
we want
stay
to be
market leaders
expanding
in print, but we
services,
want to
right?
be expanding and
Yeah.
growing the services. And so this week, I actually had I brought in a contractor who's an anthropologist and a design thinker to challenge the team. And I brought in the team at a very diverse team:
Interesting.
finance, marketing, engineering, client experience, right? A whole range of people, and brought him in, and they did a 2-day workshop on digital services. The first day was like dream big,
Uh-huh.
and let's come up with 8 stories. Who do we want to be? What are the outcomes for our clients? Why did they buy from us? What How did it change their lives? Who were we selling to? And then the second day it was like, okay, let's come back to reality of these 8 stories. Like,
Yeah,
what are
those
we going to do in the near term,
ground
midterm,
these
long
things.
term?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So then the 8 stories, you're kind of imagining kind of what these visions could look like, but are you still going after all 8, or are these kind of molded into one
So
cohesive?
I'm gonna get a readout later today
Oh, this
on,
is like real
because it was real
time.
time. It was
Oh my gosh.
yesterday. It
All
was
right.
Wednesday
You
and
heard it
Thursday.
first.
Yeah. So
That's
so
amazing. I
yeah,
mean,
to
that's such
really
a cool.
shape people's strategy, because people have to know what they're trying to achieve,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
And you've
Yes.
got to pick your spots, and it means that you can't win at everything.
Hmm.
You've got to narrow down your focus, and you've got to be super aligned as a team on what are the few that are going to move the needle this year, what are the
A
few that
hundred
are going to
percent.
move the needle
Yeah.
next year.
There needs to be absolute clarity, and everybody needs to know their part, how their work contributes to the greater whole, so they feel part of that vision. And I think, the TED talk by Simon Sinek about why was always amazing to me, because he would say, if you have you ever seen the golden circle, there's the what, how, and then why in the middle. And a lot of companies start off with, here's what we do, here's how we do it, would you like to buy our products, versus saying, the big company, or the real companies that get loyalty like Apple, they start with why,
Hmm.
meaning, okay, they say, everything we do, we challenge the status quo. And then here's how we do it, and here's what we do, here's what we create. And when you start with the why, that feeling of like, oh man, I want to be part of that, because
Right.
people are gravitate to and attracted to things they can relate to, right? Like, and if that vision creates a feeling of, like, of excitement as to kind of why we're doing what we do, then it creates this, brand loyalty and attention.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, you've got to get to the hearts and the minds of your buyers,
Hmm.
right? Even in B2B, because we don't sell anything like, we don't have retail products, we don't do any direct to consumer, we sell to businesses. But
Right.
those businesses are run by people who are making decisions, and you've got to capture their hearts and minds. You've got to make their day either more exciting, easier, more productive.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's interesting. Yesterday, I was at a Florida State, let me get this right, Florida State Minority Supplier Development Council conference.
Okay.
It's
That's a
impressive
mouthful.
that I got that word salad right. And as a small business, I was there because they were matching up with larger businesses and so forth, which is great for, diversity, and then supplier diversity, and getting smaller businesses involved and stuff like that. Is supplier diversity and, obviously diversity and inclusion big at Xerox,
Oh my God.
right?
At
It's
Xerox, it is part of the DNA of the
the
company,
fabric.
the fabric of the company. And it's so interesting because before it was a thing in corporate America, it was part of who Xerox was. Like,
Nice.
our employee resource groups,
Right.
the employee resource groups were pretty much created at Xerox. And
Really?
our the Women's Alliance, which is what the
Yeah.
oldest employee resource group at Xerox, is 100 years old.
Get out.
Yes, 100 years old this year.
Wow. Yeah, you guys wrote the book on that.
Yes. So it is literally part
That's
of
amazing.
who we are. Like, it's not one of these fads. Like, the Supreme Court ruling didn't change anything about who we are and
Right.
how we operate. So that was really nice to me. Like, in the interview process with Xerox, I have my own like branded website, and I mentor a lot of younger women in the industry, just to kind of be the role model that I never really had when I
Hmm.
was growing professionally in the
Yeah.
industry. Just make myself available so people can kind of come to me and ask for advice. And I asked, during the interview process, would you be okay? This is my passion project. And they were like, we're more than okay. We're so excited that this
Yeah,
is
of
your passion
course.
project.
Of
Like,
course.
that's part of why we're attracted to you as somebody to
Absolutely.
join.
Absolutely. And so, and you were a part of the United Way, the women,
Women
United group,
United.
right? That you guys met yesterday, I think. My wife was
Yes,
there and a bunch of my good friends.
yes.
So tell me about that experience. What was that like?
It was awesome. It was my first one. So I
Yeah.
just became part of the Women United community, and it's great. Like, it was a room full of 500 plus amazing women, professionals, people dedicated to making Miami better, making, life a little easier for women here, and
Right.
trying to help especially like underserved communities with financial independence and education support. But the keynote speaker, who was introduced by Leslie, who's the chair of the board for Teach for America Miami Data, which I'm also on the board of that.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so I didn't even know Leslie was
That's
introducing
funny.
the main speaker. She was the founder of Guilt, Glam Squad, a bunch of other things, Harvard educated for both her bachelor's and her master's. Super, super accomplished and interesting woman. And it was so nice to hear kind of her story, her trajectory in startup world and being an
Right.
entrepreneur, and how little um, attention she got really from like VC and PE to be able to get seed money to start their businesses.
Yep.
And she was telling us the funniest thing about Glam Squad when she started Glam Squad, and they were pitching to men, of course, right, for money. And the men brought in their EAs, their administrative assistants,
No, to kind of
to kind of listen to the pitch.
gauge,
Yeah.
yeah, from
And
their perspective.
and it was the EAs that helped
No
sell,
way.
because they were like, think of, Dry Bar and like, I don't know, Mac have like a baby and it comes to your house and does your hair and your makeup for an event. And the men were like, what?
Yeah, we don't get it. So we
Yeah.
compute.
Yeah. And the EAs were like, this is
Of
good.
course, this is amazing. Do
This
it.
is gonna do well.
That's hilarious. So it's funny because I think as an entrepreneur, as a business person, being a part of the community and community groups is really important for those out there, starting off. Your network is your net worth. Absolutely, right? It's all about relationships. Doesn't matter what line of business you're in, and if you're able to do some good in the community at the same time, it's a win-win all around, right?
Absolutely. It is so important, I think. And we can't lose sight. Like, you have to be proud of your accomplishments in business and financially. Obviously, you have to have goals. But if you can't give back and pay it forward,
Right.
then what's it all for? Right. And
Yeah.
so I think for me, it's always really important to be active in the community and to feel like I'm paying it forward in some way.
Good, good. So let's switch gears. What does your day look like? Give me a rundown of your mornings. Like, what's your morning routine? What do you do to kind of stay every time I see you, you seem to be calm, cool, and collected. Although you're under a lot of pressure, I'm sure. You have two kids. So like what does your routine look like?
So on a good day, on my best days, I hopefully got 7 hours of sleep. That's what I try to
Right.
aim for, right? Because sleep is so important to rest and
Oh,
recharge.
absolutely.
Um, but I usually wake up between 5:45 and 6, and my kids just
Early
finished
bird.
school yesterday, so I won't have to worry about this part. But usually my routine was get them ready, like get them breakfast, get them
Yeah.
fed so they could get ready for school. I go to the gym at 6:30. Working out is super important to me.
Oh,
It is
absolutely.
the only way I stay calm, cool, and
Yeah, yeah.
collected in
Absolutely.
the midst of everything that's thrown at you. So go to the gym, 6:30 to 7:30. Drop them at school at 7:30 because they got to be there early. And then get ready for my day and start my day. But having known I already got my workout in,
Oh, I tell everybody the same thing. It doesn't have. It's not something you need to do. It's something that should be just part of your routine, right? Absolutely.
absolutely, absolutely part of it. And I do it fasting now. I've been doing intermittent fasting for a while, so I just have my espresso, and then I go to the gym, and then I try not to eat until lunch. So again, on my best days, that's what my day looks
You
like.
don't get hangry.
I
I get hangry. I'm like I
I've
have a
I've
hard time
I've
fasting.
moved past it, actually. I've moved past the
Yeah.
hangry phase, and those are days I'm home. Obviously, when I'm working from home, sometimes I travel, and my routine is different. But today was a home day, and I
Hmm.
got in my best day routine in the morning today, so I feel good.
Good, good, good. So I always ask my guests this: what was the game-changing moment or an event or something that happened in your life that was just a game changer for you? Like the light went off or something, it was a big pivot or a big kind of after that it was a hockey stick. What was that for you?
So it's funny you should ask because there's one moment that always comes to my mind. My son was diagnosed with leukemia when he was almost 3. Shout out to Nick Glass Children's Hospital. Then it was Miami Children's Hospital. I still
Right.
stay very
Amazing
engaged with them
organization.
because of they treated my son, and it was the hardest period of our
Wow.
lives. I was at work, right? He was sick. I brought him to the doctor. The doctor ran some tests because she was like, it's weird. He has a high fever, and he had had a high fever for a few days, but there was no other evidence of cold, flu, other things, right? Like she was less, the fever was strange. So she ran blood tests, thank God. And then he went back home. I went back to work, and she called me and she was like, you need to come back. And I'm like, I will come back, but tell me what I'm dealing with. Like, I'm the kind
Right.
of person I need
I,
to know
I need
right
to rip
now.
the band-aid off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was like, either he has cancer or he
Oh my
has,
gosh.
yeah, or he has a virus that's attacking his immune system, but he needs to go to the emergency room now.
And he
At
was
literally almost 3. He
3 years
was
old.
like
Oh
a
my
month shy of
god.
3. And literally, like, I couldn't, I could hardly stand. I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
I was hyperventilating. It was a horrible, horrible experience. But we went to the hospital. We ended up being admitted for 3 weeks that first time. So he was treated
Wow.
right away, and he, thank God, is doing great. He is awesome. He's like, 10 years plus
Right.
treatment free, cancer free. But it was a 3-year treatment. Leukemia
3
has a protocol
years.
that you've got to follow, especially for boys. It's really long. It's 3 years of treatment.
Wow.
So, something like that happens, it changes you forever,
Oh, for sure. For sure.
forever. And I think it actually made me a better person. It made me a better leader. It made me more empathetic. It
Mhm.
reminds me, even in as much as I love what I do at work, and I will never stop working because I love
Right.
I love keeping my brain going and
Yeah, active.
active. Um, you also have to put things in perspective,
Yeah.
right? And it's not a life or death situation. I tell my team this all the time as a way to kind of remind them that they can try new
Mhm.
things. So you're not a neurosurgeon, nobody's on the table depending on your
Right.
your skill set to survive right now. Like allow yourself to have some fun.
Yeah, have
Give
some
yourself the
grace.
freedom, have some grace.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was game changing, and I think, you know, I I I would never wish it on any parent.
No, that's it as a parent, I cringe just even thinking about it. That's gotta be just horrifying, and it almost just, like, consumes you, right? And there's nothing else matters at that point. It's just
Nothing else matters.
and unfortunately, we tend to only get those flashes of realization when we have a loved one pass away or someone pass away, and you're like, "Oh, man," it resets things, it puts it into perspective. But then slowly but surely, we start kinda drifting back into our normal world, and like you, I had a what I call my anchor when I'm stressed out about something or there's something that's an issue or I'm like overwhelmed by something. I always refer back to a friend of mine. When I was in Geneva and in Rome working with Caterpillar, I had a colleague of mine who was, this guy was the most fit guy, good looking, fit Swiss guy, Swiss downhill skier, had just, had a family, started his family, and he was complaining about headaches. And I still have a headache, and for like a week or week and 2 weeks. So he finally goes to the doctor and finds out he has a brain tumor the size
Oh
of a golf
gosh.
ball. And so they had to go in there, remove the skull, get in there. They removed the tumor, but then when they went to go replace the skull, the skull had gotten infected, and so then he couldn't put the skull back on, and so he only had his skin, and he had to wear a helmet for like 3 months because he can go like this and literally like touch his brain.
Oh my
So 3 months he
gosh.
had a helmet on, lost some of his short-term memory, not the long-term, but finally, until they made a composite of the skull and put it back on, and he's healthy and happy today. But that's always my reference point. Is it as bad as what Cedric had? And it's doesn't it never even pales in comparison. And so I think it's important to have some kind of like reference point because it puts things in perspective. And then the other thing is gratitude, is always being grateful for what we have in this country. I mean, there's people in Gaza right now, we know,
that are going through hell, and we're so fortunate not to have that. And so, what do we have to deal with? Some trivial business issues that are solvable, right?
That are
Those
solvable.
are nothing.
That we get the privilege and
Yeah,
honor
we get
of
the
trying
privilege
to
to do
solve,
it, right?
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So if you went back and talked to your 20-year-old self, you had a time machine, you got to go back and tell her something. What would that some advice? What would that be?
One of the ones, I call myself a recovering perfectionist. So I would have told her to stop chasing perfection
Oh yeah.
a lot longer ago than I
Hmm.
learned to on my own. And grace is like my word this year, actually. So it's funny
Oh,
you
that's
said that,
good.
right?
That's
Grace for
good.
yourself, grace for others. You got to kind of understand what everybody's going through, and
Yeah.
be a little bit more forgiving of yourself and others. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I would have said to stop chasing perfection a long time ago.
That's so true, right? There's nothing perfect, and then let's say once you get there, then you got another goal, and now I have to make
Yep.
that perfect, and then it's stressful, right?
It is so stressful. It's like
There's no need to
allowing
put that on
yourself
yourself.
to kind of get through the curves in life and the
Yeah,
ups and downs, right?
yeah. I think putting one foot in front of the other, doing your best each and every day. That's all you can ask for, right? And you can do that consistently enough for long enough periods with some persistence, I think you always get there in the end.
Absolutely. Resilience,
Awesome.
persistence, those are great reminders. Authenticity, don't change yourself.
Oh
Learn
yeah,
from people.
that's 100%. That's 100%. Well, Deena, this has been amazing. I'm
Thank
sure
you.
that everyone listening is going to get a lot of nuggets of gold from this. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
If you loved what you heard in today's episode of Game Changers, please subscribe and rate us. The lessons and the stories in these podcasts are immensely valuable, so I invite you to share them with a friend who needs to hear it. You may end up being the game changer in their lives.